guys, King here, bringing you a discussion video on some Resident Evil 9. This isn't really going to be a theory or speculation video, it's just more of a discussion slash rant properly, depending on how frustrated or upset I get throughout the course of this video while discussing these topics. But I'm going to try and keep my cool here. And yeah, this topic's really going to be about the hate for Resident Evil in general, for a lot of things that people don't like and are pretty much complaining about all the time. I want to read through some comments obviously and give you my thoughts on those and discuss some other things regarding the series and a lot of the hate that this new game and even the remakes get and franchises in general. So yeah, let's do that. I thought it would be a fun topic to discuss. It's something I wanted to do for a while now, but it's getting a bit annoying now because I have been getting a few comments here or seeing some stuff online that's just sort of made me go, ugh, you know. But yeah, before I begin further into like and subscribe, guys, and yeah, let's do this. So, first up, starting with Sheriff 956. So, this is regarding at least the plot for the game a little bit. So this I guess this part's going to be a bit of a speculation. So I'm going to go through this very quickly. I think when the director says this is a eulogy for everyone involved with Raccoon City's disaster, that's his cheeky way of confirming this is the end of the OG story, along with our beloved characters and Umbrella. OG Umbrella, not Blue Umbrella, obviously. Because eulogy is like the speech you give for a deceased, one before you put them in the ground. With that said, the game will be, to my understanding, like said speech for all the characters involved. Meaning we're probably going to see them in the game before we say goodbye to them, move on to new stories. And no, I don't mean any of said characters will die. Like, I think Batman and Arkham Knight basically, like if that ain't enough confirmation from the director, no less, that this is the end for the OG story, then I don't know what is. So yeah, that was the part that got me really confused when they were showing all these characters, right, from the previous games, like Leon, Jill, Sherry, Claire, Ada, these old characters that were connected to Raccoon City in some way. They were in Raccoon City when shit hit the fan, essentially. And you got to keep in mind that they, in my opinion, they are going for like the remake canon in this case. So it would make sense for those specific characters to be involved in some way, perhaps. I do 100% think Leon's going to be in this. And if Leon is in this, I do think Ada will be involved as well. But as some other comments have also said, if this is sort of like the end of the OG Umbrella Raccoon City story, right? And we're never going to go back to that ever again after this game, why would you not bring back the other characters? Like, if you're exploring Raccoon City, right? Wouldn't it make sense to bring Jill back? Like, she lived in that town. She knows where everything is. Like, it would make sense for her to be involved. Even Chris, like, yeah, we didn't play as him in Raccoon City. We didn't play as him in RE2 or RE3. But we know he lived in Raccoon City. He worked there, so he would know things as well, right? And then, of course, other characters that wouldn't really make sense to bring back because, in my opinion, the stories are complete. It doesn't really make sense for Sherry to come back. Oh, like she had this big traumatizing element in Raccoon City, and with 6, it feels like she's moved past that. So I feel like she's moved on, like because she had Claire and Leon in her life to sort of fill that void. It makes no sense for her to come back and be involved in that incident. And same with Claire. You know, some people are gonna be like, why didn't you mention Claire, for example? The reason I don't mention Claire is because, in my honest opinion, her story ended with Code Veronica. You know, her story began in RE2 and her aim was to find Chris. And in the process of that, she ended up finding about the Umbrella conspiracy and looking after and protecting Sherry. And then with Code Veronica, we got a resolution on that. She found Chris and yeah, she escaped with him and that was it. She found out the truth and that's that. They then brought her back in Umbrella Degeneration to give us an idea of where she was and what she was doing for her life. And then they used that backstory to create this new story for Revelations 2. But in my honest opinion, her story is basically done. Like, she was essentially always the civilian, you know? Like, same sort of with Rebecca, for example. Like, yeah, Rebecca, it was a STARS member, but really she was just this teenager, this young adult now. And we've seen what her story is now. She's a professor and she helps create vaccines and that. So I feel like a lot of these characters, we do have sort of like an idea of where they are and what their jobs are now, and they have their conclusions. There's no need really to bring them back besides like fan service or nostalgia bait. Like there's not really a lot of stories you can tell of these characters. Do you know what I mean? And that's why I feel like characters specifically like Claire and that their stories are done. The only reason you would bring Claire back really is if you were to kill her off, and then for us motivate characters like Chris and Leon into action, you know? And I feel like that's such a disservice, like, so I just don't see the need for it. But characters like Chris, like, we know he's safe. We know he's safe up until, like, the year 2037. But obviously there's still that hanging loose thread with the BSA stuff. So it's like, yeah, he needs to come back so we get some sort of resolution on that. But Jill definitely should be in my honest opinion, Jill should definitely be in this game. Like, if you're tying this to Raccoon City, she should definitely be in this. Like, at least her, Leon, and Ada should definitely be in this. Maybe some of the... Maybe instead of Joe, it could be some of the Outbreak characters. So, like, what Outbreak characters could you realistically bring back? And it would be the ones that are kind of young, that aren't old enough yet. Like, I think, was it Mark and George, the doctor and the security guard? They're, like, old. You wouldn't be able to bring them back. But, like, Kevin Ryman, for example, was an RPD officer. And he could have, like, gone on to do other things. Maybe he became a BSA soldier. Maybe he, like Leon, joined the DOA or something. Is it DOA? I don't know. Like, but he's someone you could bring back realistically, because he was, like, the only fighter there. Everyone else was, like, normal. Like, David was a plumber, for example. Jim was a subway driver. It wouldn't make sense to bring those guys back. Cindy was a waitress. So it makes sense that Elisa they would bring back because she was a reporter. She would be doing reporting things like that is a physical sort of job. Do you know what I mean? So that kind of works in their benefit in terms of tying the story to her in some way. But I'm just overall curious about the whole eulogy thing, because why mention that? Why say this is a eulogy to everything from the past games if you're not going to bring certain characters back? Unless these characters are going to be cameos, or we're going to, like, get files or videos or something. Like, that would be cool. That would be cool. Maybe we play as Elisa and she interviews some of these survivors from Raccoon City, and for us to get some sort of conclusion with them that way. I don't know. That would be... It's things to think about. But, like, even Capcom said this game is going to be massive. So it's like, how massive are we talking? Massive enough that it's got a big stat cast? Massive enough that there's cameos? I don't know, but... I'm just hoping, I'm really hoping there's going to be a few returning characters, and it's not just Grace, Elisa, and Leon, you know? Like, I want a few more. But yeah, that's pretty much my overall thoughts on that eulogy part. So yeah, moving on. So yeah, I saw some of this stuff by Brian. I see a lot of people already bitching and complaining about Grace, like every time when a new RE game gets announced. So yeah, I made a comment about this regarding, because it feels like such a repetitive thing to always complain about a new character in Resident Evil. We get a new game announced, we get a new character announced that ends up being like a lead, and everyone cries about it, forgetting that this is a staple of the series from day one. When we went from Resident Evil 1 to Resident Evil 2, we had new characters. We didn't just play, we didn't continue with Chris and Jill or Barry and Rebecca from Resident Evil 1. No, Resident Evil 2 introduced us to Leon, Claire, Ada, and Sherry. Those were our new four main characters. That's how the game started, that's how it went. And then Resident Evil 3 was the one that sort of went back and tied it back together in terms of, okay, we're going to bring returning characters back. They brought Jill back, great. And then we got a new character at the same time though with Carlos. So they were still sort of continuing the trend with introducing new characters, but in this case, it was like as a supporting and side role. Okay, fair enough. Code Veronica, they did the same thing again. They brought a returning character back. Clara's the main character. They introduced us to Steven Burnside, but then they pulled another twist by bringing Chris back and tying, you know, the A plot from 1 and the A plot from Resident Evil 2 together, and boom, there you go. Like, they continued the main plots and started answering some threads in that. Going forward with the chronology, if you will, again, like Resident Evil 0, for example, you know, the prequel, we were playing as Rebecca, and then we had a new character with Billy, and he was a main character as well. He wasn't like a support. These were our two main characters, Rebecca and Billy. I didn't see anyone bitching about that back in the day. I mean, I bitch about it a lot. I do bitch about it a lot because I do feel like Resident Evil 0 should have specifically been about the Bravo team members. We should have realistically been playing as either Richard and one of the other characters and helping, protecting Rebecca, like, instead of playing as her, because like I said, it's just this big inconsistency of a character going from 0 to RE1. And then with Resident Evil, was it, I guess, again, for going chronological, Resident Evil 4, we went back to playing as Leon. And did we get a new character to play as? Yeah, we got Ashley, again, but again, that was like a support side character, and at the same time, they also brought Ada back as like a support character we could play behind the scenes with her little short mini campaign. So you know, that worked. But then Resident Evil 5 was like this big thing where it's like, okay, now you're playing as Chris, cool, but we're also going to play as Sheva. It's like, okay, so we've got a new character with Sheva, big character, second playable character. Okay, fine. And then with DLC, we ended up getting Jill, and we ended up getting Josh. So again, another new character, etc., etc. They're still continuing the trend, yeah? So it's not something new, do you know what I mean? And then with 6, it went even bigger with that, because now you had 4 campaigns, and you had like 3 new characters to play as. We had Chris come back, we had Leon come back, and we had Sherry come back, and we had Ada come back. And then we had 3 new characters to play as: Piers, Jake, and Helena. But the big key difference with Jake, for example, was he was a legacy character. Like, he was a character connected to a legacy character. He was connected to Albert Wesker. And this was something they would continue with Revelations 2 down the line. But before Revelations 2, we had Revelations 1. And that game had us playing as Jill as the main character. And then the new character in that with her was Parker. And then we had like another little campaign with Chris and Jessica with him as his partner. And then we would switch over and play as, was it Keith? And he had, Quint with him. So 2 new characters. So we were playing as like 3 different characters in that game. Parker at one point in the game, I believe. But yeah, it's not a new thing. We always keep getting new characters, you know? And Revelation's one of those examples of games where even though we're playing as Jill, she didn't really develop or grow as a character through the course of that game. Same with Chris. If anyone was really developing, it was Parker and Jessica that sort of were getting the focus, and the other new characters. Jill and Chris were just sort of there. Like, they didn't really do much. Like, they didn't really grow as individuals. And that's one of those cases of like, let's bring the returning characters back and do a story around them, and it's like, you didn't really do a story around them. They're just sort of there. Like, if you take them out, realistically, if you take them out and replace them with someone else, the story would probably still be the same, you know? So like, it was one of those cases where like Revelations 1's story for me just didn't hit as hard, because Chris and Jill was just, they're just there doing their thing. Like, it's like, okay, they're not really changing or growing, you know? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there was character growth there, but I didn't feel like there was any. Like, I didn't really feel it or see it. But yeah, going into Revelations 2, again, returning characters. We had Claire. And then we had Moira, who technically was a character we had seen or heard in the original Resident Evil 1 and the epilogue for Resident Evil 3. But that's another case of us playing as a younger character who's connected to a legacy character, in this case Barry. And we also got to play Barry in that, and as a new character in Natalia. So again, it's always been the case with Resident Evil where they give you a returning character and they give you a new character to play as well. And they always get the focus, because again, like Moira and Natalia, they were main characters. They're not just like side characters in that game. All of those 4 cool characters are main characters, and they're the ones who go for a lot of the development in that game specifically. The returning characters are just sort of there to like help with the popularity and push the story forward, but really they're not really developing as characters. Does that make sense? And then with Resident Evil 7 and 8, they decided to do something a bit more drastic. Instead of like bringing a returning character back, they were like, no, we're going to play as a new character because we want to go back to survival horror. So they gave us a new character with Ethan, and then gave us Mia as well. And then we got Chris as a returning character at the very end and in DLC, and that was like, fine, that's cool, great. But then with 8, again, they wanted to continue the story, so they continued it. But this time around, you know, like, Ethan is more of a badass this time, so yeah, like it kind of makes sense, because that's sort of what happened with the other characters. They brought like Jill back first, and now she's sort of a badass. When we got Chris back, he's sort of a badass. When we got Leon back, he's more of a badass. There's only so many times you can do this before it gets boring and repetitive, because you do need to have like characters that will react in a tense and scary situation, because after like that first experience or 2, they're no longer going to be scared. It's like he says here. I remember when RE7 got announced, like these toxic fans was on the attack mode, calling others fake fans for hyping up RE7, and come and find out that they are fake because some of them admitted that they don't like survival horror. They mostly talked about RE4-6. Now it's happening again, and people trashing Grace like Ethan, and RE9 is just 8 months away. So yeah, it is history repeating itself. I remember that. I remember when RE4 came out, everyone was like, RE4. I remember when RE5 was announced, there were a lot of people who were like, who the hell is Chris? Why is Chris the main character? Why is not Leon coming back? And it was insane to hear that. It's like, did you not play the original Resident Evil 1 or Code Veronica, and that like Chris was always like the main like hero of the series. Like, why wouldn't they bring it? It's so stupid to hear people talk about that, and it's even more crazy when you've got people calling themselves fans, but they're only fans of RE4, 5, and 6, for example. Like, what does it mean to be a real fan? Like, what does it mean to be a real Resident Evil fan, right? That's a very hard question, because Resident Evil at this point, and this is one of the things I love about this series, is that it is different. Like each few years, a game, you know, when they will change the gameplay, they will change the elements of it, and they will, you know, they will like make it a bit more different to appeal to different people, and sometimes that is a very good thing, and it's one of the things I like. Like, compare this to Ubisoft or EA, and they just sort of do the same thing over and over again. Or with Assassin's Creed, like, they try to revamp it, but they do it in the worst way possible. Whereas with Capcom, they keep it very simple. Like, one of my biggest fears going to RE9 was that it was going to be like this big open world game, right? And it was just going to be like this fetch quest, this campaign where you're just gonna have to like clear the map. Like, I don't like games like that. I really don't. Like, it gets repetitive and boring at a certain point, and in the end of the day, you just want to sit there and play the game. Do you know what I mean? You're like a lot of these games just feel like with environments that are empty with nothing to do in it, you know? And I don't like that. Like, it just becomes a checklist. I'm happy that RE9 is not doing that. I'm happy that RE9 is more of a spiritual successor to RE7, just hopefully bigger and better. Whether they have elements from Resident Evil 8 in there, I hope. I would love for them to continue with the upgrading system. I love that. But I imagine the upgrading system will be similar to maybe RE7, where you find parts and you combine it. So it's not going to like have a merchant. Or maybe there is a merchant in this. Imagine Leon is the merchant. Imagine they bring Leon back and he's like, oh, like hidden and that, and he's just there in the background, like helping out, he's like, oh, it's you again, how you doing? Like, here you go, I'm gonna help you with some parts. I found this in the ruins and that. Like, imagine they do something like that. They won't do that. But I'm just saying, imagine, you know, and use your imagination, guys. Use it because it's fun. But yeah, what does it mean to be a true fan, like, for this series? Because here's the thing, I love RE7. I know a lot of people don't like it. But for me, RE7, and I've always said this as well, RE7 and RE8 for me are like very big homages to those eras of Resident Evil. Like, 7 is straight up just a first-person version of RE1. Like, it's a bit more smaller scale because, you know, the environment that it's not like you're in a big mansion. But it is essentially RE1 in first person. Like, a lot of the classic elements are in there. You've got the item box that comes back. You've got the stalker enemy chasing you like a nemesis. He doesn't drop items, unfortunately, but you know, it's still there. And, you know, you're solving puzzles and that. You've got, like, the whole, the dog head thing. You know, you got to combine and put it in there. Like, a lot of things like that feel very classical from Resident Evil. And then with 8, it's just a straight up homage to RE4. So, like, yeah, that's cool. That was cool to see. And I don't hate that. I like that. I like that a lot. But, again, what does it mean to be a true fan? And I don't know what the answer for that would really be, but for me, it certainly isn't like, oh, I'm a fan of RE4, 5, and 6, and that's it. Like, that's what makes me an RE fan. No, you have to have played at least one of the classics, in my opinion. You need to have at least played either RE1, Remake, 2, or 3. And you have to have at least tried some of the newer remakes and that. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can't just sit there and go, I've played 3 of the games and I'm a massive RE fan. You're not. You're not. Like, that's just for me kind of silly, really. It's as silly as when people, for example, start a franchise at a higher number instead of going back and playing the available games that you can. Or like, and I get it, you know, sometimes those games aren't available, so you can't play it. That's fine, I get that. But when they are available, why wouldn't you play them? Why wouldn't you go back and at least try 1 or 2 of them and then play that? Why would you not? And this is another thing. A lot of people don't ever read up on this stuff, and they just buy it and are like, oh yeah, this is popular, so I'm going to play this. It's like, read up on it and see which one is considered popular or the best one and play that. Like there's a lot of people back in the day, for example, that didn't play Metal Gear Solid 1, for example, when they were playing, and they just started with Metal Gear Solid 2 or 3, and then they get to 4 and they're just so confused, like, what is going on? And it's like, well, yeah, of course you're confused because you didn't play bloody 1. Like, how are you supposed to feel anything in that game if you haven't played the very first one that connects to everything, that started it all, technically? MG2 started it, but you know what I'm trying to say, right? And that's always sort of been a nitpick for me as well. It's like, it's the same with Resident Evil. It's like, you've got a lot of these games available on modern consoles now. There's no excuse why you shouldn't be able to play them, you know? But yeah, it is ridiculous that people trash all these new characters. Like, I do remember when we were playing as Ethan, or Ethan was announced, and everyone was like, why we're not playing as a returning character? And it makes sense why we wouldn't. Like, I've already explained this as well. I've already gone through this entire part of the video now explaining why you wouldn't play as a returning character, especially if you're trying to go back to the horror. But yeah. Florin... I don't know if I'm saying that right. Florimero. I have no problem with Grace or a new character as part of the survival horror aspect of RE. But saying that wouldn't work on the OG characters because they're OP now and cannot be scared. I don't know about that. Leon could still technically be scared, and you could still place him in a survival horror setting. Just take away all his guns, for example. Here's the thing. And I've already said this as well, and the directors and creators have already said this as well. It won't work. It won't work. These guys are superheroes now. Do you understand? Characters like Leon, Chris, and Jill, and even Claire, they're superheroes. This stuff doesn't faze them anymore. They've been involved in these things for so many years that they're essentially the equivalent of Ethan Hunt, James Bond of the RE universe. These guys are badasses. They are legends. This stuff is not going to faze them. When you're playing as Leon in RE4, are you ever truly really scared? Don't get me wrong. There is moments in the remake, for example, that are scary, and there were moments in the original as well that were horror focused. But the majority of that game was an action game. Same with RE5, action game. Same with RE6, action game. When you're playing as those specific characters, you're no longer scared. And for Christ's sake, RE6, for example, had you play as Jake, and he was using his hands to beat enemies, his fists, for crying out loud. It's just not scary when you're playing a character like that who is used to war, to bioweapons, and that, like, you need a character that's not been involved in that sort of thing. You need a character that's never encountered that. You need a character that's going to go through this and be like, oh my god, what's going on? And Grace, the way they've clearly designed her is being this very inexperienced introvert sort of character. Like, this is a character who spends a lot of the time clearly in the office and hasn't had time to go out into the real world, especially because of what happened to her mom. So she's very much keeping to herself, and now she's going to get thrown into a situation where she has to survive, where she is going to be terrified out of her mind, and she has to overcome that fear. And by the time you get to the third act, like every RE game, when you get to the third act, you're now a bona fide badass, and you're no longer afraid, and you're going through it, and you're kicking ass, and you overcome it, and by the end, you're basically like this god now, essentially, because you got all the health items, you got all the ammo, you got all the big, strongest weapons, and that's kind of how it's always been. That's always how it's been designed. If you're bringing Chris, Leon, or any of those characters back into that kind of situation, it is just going to become an action game. And I get this part, like, just take away their guns and that. You give Leon a knife, he's just going to start stabbing everything to death, you know? He's the knife expert. Same with Chris, like, he's just going to punch enemies with his fists, okay? Like, this is a dude who punched a boulder. A boulder, okay? If he doesn't have his guns, he's just going to run up to the nearest person, like, and give them the 1, 2, 4, like, that's it. Same with Jill, she's going to go there and start kicking enemies and snap their necks with her legs on her thighs, like these guys don't need weapons. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's how certified badass they are, and that's why it's not scary. The moment you have me playing as Leon, Chris, or Jill, in my personal experience, I'm gonna be like, I'm a badass now. Like, that doesn't work with RE2, for example, like, because RE2 is designed to be a horror game, and I get that part. You could technically design the game in a way where it's scary, and I understand that. Maybe you could do that. But what kind of horror are we talking here that you could design it in that way, in such a way where, like, characters like Chris and Jill will be affected and terrified? Like the only kind of horror element I could see them pulling off really with any of the returning characters is with Jill. And that's if they really focus on giving her like this PTSD from what Wesker did with her, and are seeing like some of the experimentations or the horrors that she experienced. They could even do a plot, for example, that ties back to something that Jill was involved in during her time under Wesker's control, and that would be kind of cool to do. And like Jill realizes this, and she's getting her memories back from that. And it's like, I remember this. Oh my god, this is important, etc., etc. That would be a cool way to do it. And then like you add that PTSD element to it, and she gets terrified, maybe like because it's bringing all these bad memories back, and she can't focus to be the badass that she is. I could see them do something like that. But with Chris and Leon specifically, I just can't see it. I just can't see it. Especially with the CGI movies now. Like they're not scared anymore. These guys are going through the ringer and just kicking ass all the time. It just wouldn't work. It wouldn't be believable either, because like they're right when they say they wouldn't flinch. They wouldn't. If you're that experienced and that old now at that point. Like, look at Barry, for example. Like you know, he comes back after all these years, and the moment we start playing with him, right, he's decked out with weapons. He's got the freaking M4. He's got his Python. He's got like his samurai edge. This dude is ready. He's ready. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's one of those rare times where you start a Resident Evil game and the character is ready for badassery. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like, I'm not taking any chances. Boom, decked out. Like, I'm ready for action. And yeah, that's an example of a character who's not gonna be afraid. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's that illusion. Do you know what I mean? Like, the moment you decide to like create a survival horror game with these characters and you want to make them feel scared, I don't think I would believe it. I don't think I would believe it. I'll be like, really? You're terrified now? Really? You took down a giant fly, dinosaur, centaur, saber-toothed creature in RE6 and now you're afraid, Leon? No, get the fuck out of here, man. Get out of here. You're not scared. Get out of here. Get out. Like, it's just not believable in my opinion. And yeah, I think that's really it in terms of that factor. Like, and I have to agree with the creators. Like, it just makes no sense bringing these characters back and having them be main characters in a horror game if because it is gonna break the illusion. That said, I do 100% believe Leon will be in this because, again, and this is the thing I feel like a lot of people aren't realizing. The director never said that Leon was not in RE9. He said that Leon is not the main character of RE9. He never said he wasn't in it. He said he's not the main character. So I do think Leon is in it. And again, when you look at the social media stuff regarding Nick's actor and that, it's pretty damn obvious he's involved. So he's definitely in this. My question just comes down to whether or not we're going to have other returning characters in this, because I can't find anything on social media confirming whether or not we've got, I do think the voice actors for a lot of these characters are in this, but they could just be voicing different characters. That's the thing. There's no hints about whether Jill, Chris, and they are going to be in this, so... But yeah, moving on. So the next part about discussing hate for this series is going to be regarding the remakes. So I've deleted a lot of these comments and posts personally because I just find them to feel like they're childish and trolling at this point. Because I had a few people comment and complaining about the remakes, despite me suggesting that I want to see remakes of all the main games that we haven't gotten yet in the RE engine. And a lot of people have commented, I know you've seen some stuff online where people are just constantly bitching about the remakes and hating on them and how like Capcom fucked up with them. But here's my 2 cents and opinions on this. The remakes and the overall game that they've made in the RE engine are fun to play. I have a lot of fun playing these games. I had a lot of fun playing RE2 Remake. I had a lot of fun playing RE3 Remake despite its issues and flaws. And my favorite Resident Evil game right now today is RE4 Remake. And I love the Separate Ways DLC, and I loved how they developed and reconstructed and reimagined everything with that game. Like, I had a lot of complaints with the original RE4, and the remake pretty much fixed a lot of my issues regarding that original game. But going on, talking about the remakes, or the reimaginings if you will, RE2 Remake, I think it's one of the best games they've made. Like, one of the best Resident Evil games by far. It's such a fun game to play. The atmosphere is great, the horror setting is great, the way the RPD has been remade is great, and I do love how they've reimagined, the sewer sections and the laboratory. I like those parts. What I don't like about RE2 Remake is the fact that they screwed up with the Scenario B, they screwed up with the zapping system, they took that out, and they screwed up with the intercrossing storyline. My main key thing I wish they'd just gotten right was the intercrossing storyline. Instead, they went for this RE1/RE1 Remake format, where you're just playing 2 different sort of stories, but there's no way that they could really come together in a way because of the fact that you have 2 moments in both campaigns where Annette dies an alternative death. So we don't know what the canon version is. We don't know how things would have gone around in that, like, because clearly she does shoot Ada, but then she dies there, but then the bridge is gone. So how would she have gotten across there to meet Claire? And then obviously you've got Leon and Claire fighting the same bosses over and over again instead of them fighting specific versions of those bosses like they do in the original RE2. So they did screw up on that part. And for me, that's one of the reasons why I wouldn't give that game a 10 out of 10, because they screw that up. But for me, it is easily like an 8 or an 8.5. It's a fun bloody game. And for me, that is, while it is a big issue that they screwed up on, it is a nitpick in the end of the day. Because in the end of the day, RE1 did this as well. And they never fixed that with the remake. So it is what it is, unfortunately. I'm not going to shit on it when it does a lot of things right. Especially when it comes to characters like Leon. Like, the way they did Leon in RE2 Remake, and then the way they had Leon go from RE2 Remake to RE4 Remake, for me, is brilliant character development and growth. Because now Leon feels like a human. He feels like a human. He feels like a broken human. I feel that this is the same character, versus Leon from RE2 to RE4 just felt very inconsistent. It didn't feel like the same character. Same with like how we have Rebecca go from 0 to 1. It doesn't feel like the same character. A lot of the characters don't feel the same, but this is one of those cases where they sat down and, in my opinion, the writing saved it. Yeah, there's some other issues I do have with RE2 Remake. I do wish Ben's role was bigger and larger. I do wish that Irons, for example, was a bit more better handled and more similar to his RE2 OG counterpart versus what we got in the remake. But I did like everything else. I like how they did Leon. I like how they did Claire. I like how they did Ada and Sherry. I like how they did Annette and Marvin, for example. Like, those are things that I think they did very, very well. Versus some other side characters and issues. But overall, I think I love RE2 Remake. It is one of my favorite RE games. And it's an RE game I do go back to like once a year and play, like, and replay. It is a fun game. And then we have RE3 Remake, for example, which, yes, I agree. They butchered that. They screwed up. I've said this before. RE3 Remake is a good game, and it's a good game if you buy it at a cheap price, but it is a terrible remake. It does get a few things right. Again, I think the story, for the most part, is fine. I love the soundtrack. I love the boss fights with a nemesis. I just love the overall feel of it. The game is fun to play, like I said. The hospital section is probably the best part of the game. And I do like the lab being under the hospital, for example, and I do like some of the redesigns of some of the monsters and creations. I think that's all good. I think it's a very fun game to play. But as a remake, it is terrible. I would have loved for them to include the clock tower. I would have loved for them to include more puzzles, because there's only like 3 puzzles in the game and they barely count as puzzles. It needed more puzzles. It needed the clock tower. That whole clock tower section should have been included and should have been the big puzzle area of the game, essentially. And they should have given us the second form of a nemesis with the burned off coat and the tentacles. They really should have done that. I don't mind the Gravedigger not being in it, but we should have gotten more humanoid nemesis encounters. And that's really my big peeve with the game. Like, it's a fun game to play, but in the end of the day, it does feel like DLC. And that's the disappointing factor of that game. Like, it's not a bad game. It's a bad remake. But I do like it, and I do like the story consistencies that they created with it. Like, I feel like it works well for the most part. And then of RE4 Remake, I'm not even going to go into it because I've already explained why I love it in previous videos. Like, I love that. But overall, like I said, I like how they handle Leon's character. I like that it ties back to the previous games in a way. I like the aesthetics and the atmosphere and how everything just feels like it works together now, versus the original where a lot of things just sort of happened and came out. I like that they cut a lot of the areas and stuff, like, or they combined certain set pieces of that together to condense the game and make it a bit more tighter. I like that we got more puzzles and stuff added in. I love the parry system. I love what they did with separate ways, which feels a bit more bigger than the original, which was just bare bones again. I like that the story feels natural, that it connects to previous games and connects to the next ones going forward. Like, now they have an idea of where things are going. They can set it up properly. So I like all of that. I love that. So I have no issues with Capcom continuing remaking other games like Zero or Code Veronica or doing another RE1 remake if it means that they'll streamline the story and make the writing and characters more consistent, so that when you're going through these games in chronological order at one point, you'll be able to go, oh, this feels natural, this all makes sense now, like it's all going here, it's all going here, and you're getting rid of all the unnecessary fat. Like they got rid of the agency and the organization, fine, get rid of that, because you're not going to do anything with that. That's never coming back. So get rid of it, get it out of there, like, good, done. Just make Ada a mercenary, fine. Just reveal she's working for Wesker, fine. Reveal that Wesker isn't working for some rival company. The rival company is TriStar now if you want. Just do that, reveal that. Add more elements, tiebacks, whatever if you will. I like that. I don't mind that. I have no problem with them like remaking Zero if it means that they're going to do a complete overhaul. If they're going to take that game, rip it apart, change it, and make it better in terms of the story and characters. Does that mean we're going to get more focus on Bravo Team? I hope that's the case. I hope it's not just, oh, we're going to have Rebecca and Billy just being the main characters again. No, I want Bravo Team as support characters in that game. I want more development of them. I want them to remake RE1 again in the RE engine and make Wesker's characterization a bit more tighter. Have it revealed that yes, he wants to like bring about like the deaths of billions so he can cause human evolution. Like let reveal that. Let's find that out. Let's go like, oh, that's his plan. Okay, cool. Like make it more consistent with his RE4 and RE5 versions going forward. Have more revelations and tie-ins to like James Marcus. Like have more consistency between 0 and 1, for example. Code Veronica remake, again, do the same thing. Like make the story more tighter. Give us files with revealing that, oh, Wesker is working for Ada and that she was working with him during the events of Raccoon City. Reveal that he's working for Tricell at the moment. That's the rival company that he left after he died in RE1, and that like give us files like that. Reveal other tie-ins, like maybe reveal that Nikolai was working for Wesker. He was one of his agents, and that he positioned in there during Raccoon City. So now Wesker's got his hands in Raccoon City, like he's the behind-the-scenes guy doing everything. Like, you know, do things like that. Change it up a bit, make it better, make it more consistent, make it better. And I don't mind that. I don't mind when they cut things as long as it's a good cut, in my opinion. Like I said, RE2 and 3 remake in my example were cases of I wish they hadn't cut that. RE4 remake is a case of I'm happy they cut that and they changed it. My only complaints of RE4 remake is the fact that we lost the quick time events, which I wish they'd kept in, and the ban for between Leon, Sadler, and Salazar. I wish that they'd kept those elements in. Other than that, I love everything about it, and I have no problem with how they're doing and handling these remakes. Like going forward, I have every confidence in them that they're gonna sort these things out and they're gonna make these games fun. Because in my opinion, RE0 and Code Veronica are not fun games to play. If it means that they can remake them and make the pacing, story, and characters better, that it's more fun to play and more engaging to interact with, I'm all for it. I have no problem with that. So for people bitching about it and saying that Capcom is doing it wrong and they're not doing it right, no, they're not doing anything wrong. They've made some mistakes here and there, but for the most part, they clearly know what the hell they're doing and they've done a good job. As long as they keep the core values and spirits of what needs to be kept in and happen, I'm all for it. Like, do that. So yeah, I'm not going to be one of those people that's going to sit there and constantly bitch about this series like, oh, we're playing as a new character. I have no problem playing as a new character as long as that new character is interesting and as long as we get a returning character coming back. I have no problem with Grace. Like I said, we've already had like Jake, we've had Moira, and now we have Grace, who's connected to another legacy character, in this case with Elisa. It's all good. Like, and I have no problems with the remakes. I'm looking forward to those remakes. I hope they're good. I really do. I hope they fix the storyline issues with that. I hope they fix the gameplay issues with those games. I hope they fix the pacing issues. I'm looking forward to those. I have no complaints with this series so far. I feel Capcom has been hitting it out of the park since they started this RE engine universe, if you will, of the Resident Evil games. Like, they've done a great job, good to great job so far. So could it be better in some cases? Yeah, but like it's not enough for me to sit there and constantly go, I'm gonna bitch about this, I'm gonna hate about this, because why am I gonna do that? Why? If you don't like something, don't play it. It's as simple as that. Like, sometimes I will complain about things, yeah, but I will also give it a chance. And if I don't like it, I don't like it. Like, you guys have seen, you guys have probably seen my videos on Last of Us 2. You've seen how I complain about that. Eventually, I did play the game. And yeah, while I had fun with the gameplay and that, I didn't have fun with the story and the characters, and I hated it. But that's it. Like, I didn't go and make an overall review about it. I did my bitching about it once or twice, I think, back when it leaked, and that was it. I gave my thoughts and then that was it. I'm not gonna go through it all over again. Just like how I did a review for like the Resident Evil Netflix show. I reviewed it once, that was it, done. That's it. I've given my thoughts about it. I'm not gonna go over and over about why that show was bad. If I don't like something, I'm not gonna constantly sit there bitching about it constantly and making that part of my personality. Do you know what I mean? Like, or character. Like, no, that's not who I am. I don't want to be like those YouTube channels that constantly hate on things, like that constantly hate on the next thing, like, oh well, this is gonna suck, let's hate on it because that, you know, that's what gets us views and reactions. Like, I don't like that. I love Disney Star Wars, for example. Did I like the sequels? No, not really. But I do like most of the shows and animated shows. I watch that. Marvel, everyone keeps bitching about, you know, the multiverse saga. Yeah, there's been a few hits and misses, but for the most part, I enjoy what I've seen and watched. Like, I don't hate it. I don't hate it. A lot of this could have been better, but it is what it is. But it's not enough for me to sit there and go, I hate all of this now. It's like, no, I still enjoy it, and I try and find the positives in it. You know, I don't like being a big hater. I like to sit down, watch the stuff, and make my own mind up. Like for example, I'm loving Ironheart. I could be going in hating it, but I'm not. I gave it a chance. I watched the first 3 episodes, and I like what I've seen so far. Like, again, a lot of these things could be better, but that's just how it is. Nothing is ever perfect. That's the thing. Everyone expects perfection every single time, and there's no such thing as perfection every single time. Everything is flawed. Even the old stuff is flawed. You go back and you look at some of the old stuff for certain franchises or even games, you can always find flaws. Everything has flaws. Everything has its bad elements. Everything has its good elements. It's just how it is. Like, whether you like it or not, it depends on your, you know, your own views and opinions and attitude and that. But like, it's not enough for me to sit there and constantly hate on things. Like, there's things that I watch as a guilty pleasure that I enjoy. For example, like, I like the Michael Bay Transformers movies. They're not good films, but I do have fun with them. You know. Same with the Resident Evil movies. Like, I don't particularly like them. Like, but I do like that first movie. I do like Apocalypse, and I do have some fun with some of the sequels and that. But in no way would I say, oh, these are great or good films even. But they are fun. There are fun elements to be had on it. It's just a case of, I just wish they could have been better handled. I wish there was some consistency. I wish the narrative and that and the characters would come back, and that there'll be some overall plot line that connects it all better. But it's not. It's just like the way it's written and the way the canon is, it's just a mess. And that's kind of how I feel about the old canon of Resident Evil. Like there's just a lot of loose ends, a lot of stuff that doesn't really go anywhere, and they never address. And with these remakes, they've been trying to sort of streamline that and fix that so it's better connected now. And the fact that you've got RE9 going back to Outbreak of all games after all these years, after all this decade, is amazing. Like, I love that. I love that they're acknowledging those games now. It's like, yes, good. More tie-ins like that in the future. I don't hate this at all. I'm loving it, and I'm all for it. But yeah, I just wish people would stop with the bitching and the hating, because it is exhausting and tiring. It really is. Like, okay, come on, guys. Be better. Be better, for crying out loud. Like you calling yourself an RE fan, then you know, like there's a lot of people, like you go on Game Facts, for example. Like, there's like a particular user on those RE channels. Yeah, I'm not gonna give them their name, but like they are for years I've just been reading like some of the stuff there, and I'll see the same person comment and bitch about Resident Evil constantly, and they're just fans of the old games. Like, they don't really like any of the new ones, like since RE4 or RE5, and it's like, what the fuck are you doing here then? Like, if you wanna bitch and constantly moan, go and do that somewhere else. Like, leave other people to enjoy themselves. Like, you got people commenting how they like this stuff, and then this dude will comment constantly berating them and explaining why, oh, this sucks and that. And it's like, dude, leave them alone and let them enjoy it. Like you've given your thoughts on why it's bad before, but now you're constantly doing it and harassing people. Like, get the fuck out. Get the fuck out, you annoying troll. Because that's what you are. That's what people that do this are, in my opinion. They're trolls. They're like big trolls. Sometimes, yeah, like I get it, something's very bad and everyone expresses their opinions. You know, like Game of Thrones, for example. That was great, and then it wasn't, and rightfully so. Everyone bitched about it, and that makes sense. It's like, yeah, we get it. Like, a lot of people didn't like it, and we all know why. Same with The Last of Us 2. A lot of people like hated on it, and some of it for good reasons, some of it for not good reasons, because of like certain things. But then you had people just being overwhelmingly positive, like, no, this is great, this is a masterpiece. And it's like, it really isn't. It really isn't a masterpiece. When you've got half the audience ripping it apart, it's not a masterpiece. Like, you can't live in a dome or under a rock and sit there and act like this is perfect. It's not perfect. Like, there's clearly issues. And you gotta acknowledge that sometimes. But when it comes to like Resident Evil and that in general right now, what we have right now, it's just baffling. It's like, no, this isn't that bad. This is fine. Again, it could be better, but you know, in no ways or is this as worse as what we've gotten with those, for example. Like, this is acceptable. This is fine. Like, and that's the kind of hate that I just can't like tolerate. It's like, come on. come on, like, you can do better. Like, you can do better with your time. Like, there's actual things that should be criticized and ripped on. Things in real life, for example, going on, not just to do with movies or games and that. And you're spending all this energy ripping on something that really doesn't deserve to be ripped on, and that, like, it's just ridiculous at this point. Like the amount of hate videos, for example, on Ironheart alone, like, oh, I'm just gonna rip on this show. It's like, why? Move on with your life, man. Like, come on, there's better things to do. Like, enjoy things. Like, why are you hating on things constantly? Like, I just don't get it. And I swear to God, most of these people, they hate on these things just because they can. Like, and they probably don't believe it themselves, and they just do it because it gives them, like, an opinion and a voice to focus on. You know what I mean? Like, a platform to cry about. But in reality, they don't believe any of the shit they actually preach or say. So it's just baffling. But yeah, guys, I thought I'd just do this. I've done that. I think this ended up being a very longer video than it should have been. But yeah, I just want to give you my thoughts on that. And yeah, I hope you liked it. As always, remember to like and subscribe, guys. And I shall see you when I shall see you. Take care and bye.